Liam, get out of my, or the voice belonging to my wife, Dr. Ava Chun, was quiet but sharper than a scalpel. Under the intense white glare of the surgical lamp, every steel instrument on the tray seemed to glint with malice. This grade A carotid aneurysm resection is being led by Dr. Julian Croft from Harvard. You're off the case. She pointed a gloved finger at me, and in front of the entire cardiothoracic team, the best surgeons at Bridgewater General, and in full view of the hospital board watching from the gallery, she delivered my professional death sentence. The eyes of my colleagues swiveled to me. I saw it all: shock, pity, and a disgusting flicker of schadenfreude. Their judgment wrapped around me like a shroud. The whispers started buzzing like flies. Did you hear that? Dr. Chun just pulled her own husband off the case. In the middle of the OR. Brutal. About time. She and Dr. Croft are the real power couple. Look at them together. They're like medicine's Ken and Barbie. Liam Miller never really fit in. Exactly. He's a nobody from state school. If he hadn't gotten lucky saving the chief of surgery with that weird, unorthodox technique years ago, he never would have made attending, let alone married the department head. I ignored them. My gaze was fixed on Ava and the man standing beside her, Julian Croft. He wore a placid, reassuring smile, but his eyes held the unmistakable gleam of a predator that had just cornered its prey. He was Ava's college flame, the one that got away. And now, in her eyes, he was the genius who would elevate this department to national prominence. A smile touched my lips. It was bitter, laced with a strange sense of relief. Without a word, I peeled off my sterile gloves and pulled down my mask. Then, I unbuttoned the white coat, the very symbol of my position as an attending surgeon at Bridgewater General, and took it off. As everyone watched, stunned into silence, I held it out to Julian. Dr. Croft, I said, my voice calm. Surgery's tough work. This high-profile, career-making operation, along with my spot as lead surgeon. It's all yours. I clapped him on his shoulder, which stiffened under my touch. My tone was almost paternal. Just don't let your hands shake. The air in the room solidified. They were all looking at me like I'd lost my mind. Ava's face flushed with fury. She jabbed a finger at my chest. Liam, what is this attitude? Do you think this is some kind of joke? Stop throwing a tantrum. No one in that room knew the truth. The real challenge of this surgery, the one the hospital had staked its reputation on and invited the city's media to cover, wasn't removing the aneurysm itself. It was navigating the gossamer web of microscopic nerves surrounding it, each one 100 times finer than a human hair. The slightest tremor, the most minuscule miscalculation, would sever them, condemning the patient to permanent paralysis or instant brain death. And the technique for safely suturing them, a method I privately called the neuroweave, was something I had developed over 5 years, blending principles from an obscure 19th century anatomical text with modern microsurgery. As far as I knew, I was the only person on the planet who could perform it. Without me, this landmark surgery was nothing more than a televised execution. And my dear wife Ava, along with her golden boy Julian, would face not just the fury of the patient's family, but a malpractice lawsuit so catastrophic it would end their careers, nail them to a professional cross, and quite possibly land them in court. Liam, what are you still doing here? Didn't you hear me? Get out. Ava's voice was a venomous hiss. She saw the look in my eyes, not anger, but something closer to pity, and it enraged her further. Stop getting in the way and wasting Dr. Croft time. The success of this surgery determines whether we get designated as a national center of excellence. Can you take responsibility if you screw that up? I looked at this woman, so familiar and yet so utterly alien, and the last embers of warmth I felt for her turned to cold, dead ash. I remembered when she was just a rookie resident, fresh out of med school. She could barely hold a scalpel steady and turn pale at the sight of a major bleed. It was me who patiently guided her hand, teaching her how to hold the instruments, how to make a clean, precise suture. It was me who stood by her during her first frantic surgery, talking her through a complication when her hands started to sweat. It was me who shared every hard-won lesson, every innovative technique I developed over years in the trenches, holding nothing back. I remembered her crying to me once, saying her only dream was to be a great cardiothoracic surgeon like her father, to save lives and honor the white coat. To help her achieve that dream, I turned down a once-in-a-lifetime fellowship at the Mayo Clinic, a spot I had waited 5 years for. I poured my savings and my connections into her career, helping her climb from an overlooked, bullied junior doctor to the youngest and most celebrated department head in the history of Bridgewater General. I ran interference, handled her political battles, even stayed up for nights on end rewriting her research papers for publication. All I wanted was for her to have the space to chase her dream without distraction. But then Julian Croft, Dr. Harvard, her college sweetheart, reappeared, blazing with prestige and entitlement. And just like that, everything I had ever done for her vanished. I became an obstacle, a footnote. And today, to pave the way for her old flame, she was using this nationally televised moment to utterly humiliate me, to grind her husband under her heel and use his body as a stepping stone for a lover. Fine, I set my voice flat. I'm gone. I gave one last look at the anesthetized patient on the table, a life hanging by the thinnest of threads. Then I looked at Julian, who was practically preening, ready to soak in the glory. I felt a pang of genuine sorrow for the stranger on that table. I turned and walked toward the heavy operating room doors, my silhouette stark and lonely under the cold, clinical lights. Wait, Julian's voice stopped me just as my hand touched the door. He had that same fake, gentle smile plastered on his face. Dr. Miller, please don't misunderstand. Ava's just stressed. She doesn't really want you to leave. She's just concerned for the patient. He continued, feigning humility. And frankly, the complexity of this procedure is daunting. I'm feeling the pressure myself. Why don't you stay on as my second assistant? It would be a great opportunity for you to observe the latest microneurosurgical techniques we've developed at Harvard. They're at least a decade ahead of anything being done here. The words were polite, a supposed olive branch from a senior colleague, but the condescension and gloating in his eyes were so thick I could taste them. This was the final twist of the knife. He wanted me to stay, to watch him take my place, to see him receive the accolades and the worship. He wanted me to witness him standing shoulder to shoulder with my wife, basking in the glory that should have been mine. Ava immediately picked up her cue. He's right, Liam. You should be grateful, Dr. Croft is willing to teach you. You should thank him. Assisting a world-class expert like him is a privilege, she added, her voice dripping with disdain. Don't be an ungrateful fool. I looked at this perfectly matched pair, this tag team of treachery, and their sickeningly false faces almost made me laugh out loud. Me, his assistant, learn his technique, a flashy, impractical method lifted straight from a textbook, a procedure that had likely never been successfully tested on a live patient, practicing on a human being? Is that what they taught him at Harvard? It was the most pathetic joke I'd ever heard. I turned back slowly, my eyes locking onto Julian's. A slow, knowing, almost brilliant smile spread across my face. Dr. Croft, I appreciate the offer, truly, but I'm afraid I'm not qualified to assist a genius of your caliber. My voice dropped, the smile vanished, and my eyes became chips of ice. Besides, I don't work for clowns, especially a clown who can't even hold a scalpel steady. Without waiting to see the look of pure, unadulterated rage twisting their faces, I walked out. The heavy lead door slammed shut behind me with a deafening thud, severing the two worlds. And with it, severing the last, rotted thread of my marriage to Ava Chun. Chapter 2, I stripped off the sweat-soaked scrubs and, without a moment's hesitation, headed straight for the executive wing, to the top floor office of the chief of surgery. If Ava wanted to play dirty, then so could I. The resignation letter I'd written weeks ago, the one I'd held onto out of some last, foolish shred of hope, was about to be delivered. In his office, Dr. Marcus Thorne, a man in his 60s with a shock of white hair and a reputation that commanded respect throughout Chicago's medical community, looked at the letter in his hands with undisguised shock and regret. Liam, what's this? Why the sudden resignation? He asked, his brow furrowed. Is this about Ava again? I gave a humorless laugh and shook my head, offering no explanation. Dr. Thorne, my mind is made up. Please accept it, and thank you for everything you've done for me over the years. Dr. Thorne saw the resolve in my eyes and knew it was pointless to argue. He sighed heavily, a deep, rattling sound of disappointment. Liam, I know you've been through hell these last few years. That girl, Ava, she hasn't been the same since Julian Croft came back. She's been completely distracted. I know what you've given for her for the cardiothoracic department. I've seen it all. He shook his head. But, oh well, you young people have to make your own messes. I can't stop you. You've made your choice, and I won't stand in your way. Just know this. Even after you leave Bridgewater General, a man with your talent. You're gold, son. You'll shine wherever you go. A warmth spread through my chest. I bowed deeply to the old surgeon who had always believed in me. Thank you, sir. I'll never forget it. After completing the exit paperwork, I walked out of the administrative building that held so many of my memories. The bright afternoon sun felt blinding, but for the first time in years, I felt an incredible sense of lightness, of liberation. It was as if a crushing weight I'd been carrying for a decade had finally been lifted from my shoulders. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number buried deep in my contacts, one I hadn't called in years, but had never forgotten. It rang only once before it was answered. A warm, elderly voice with a distinct British accent boomed through the receiver. Liam? Good heavens. Is that really you, my boy? You absolute scoundrel. You finally decided to call this old man. A genuine smile formed on my face. I replied in flawless, unaccented English. Professor, it's me, Liam Miller. That invitation you extended a while back, to be the lead surgeon at the Mayo Clinic. Is that offer still on the table? On the other end of the line, my mentor, the world-renowned cardiothoracic titan and emeritus director of the Mayo Clinic, Professor William Campbell, was silent for a beat. Then he let out a laugh, so loud it was like thunder. On the table? Of course, it's still on the table. My boy, the doors of the Mayo Clinic will always be open to you. I'm sending my private jet to pick you up. Right now. Just stay put in Chicago. We'll see each other stateside very soon. And when we do, the first round of drinks is on me. Hanging up, I took a deep breath of the humid Chicago air. A new life was about to begin. As for Ava and Julian and their doomed, career-ending surgery, let them crash and burn. It had nothing to do with Liam Miller anymore. I didn't go straight to the airport. I took an Uber back to the condo I had shared with Ava for 5 years, a place once filled with warmth and now suffocatingly cold. I had to get my things, and I had to put a final, definitive end to this sham of a marriage. The familiar decor, the wedding photo hanging on the wall, us smiling, incandescently happy. In the picture, Ava's eyes were full of hope, full of reliance on me. The woman in that photo was a ghost. My heart was a block of ice. I walked into the bedroom and pulled a dusty suitcase from the back of the closet. I started packing my few belongings, a couple of old shirts, a treasured antique medical text, and the only thing my mother had left me, a simple silver locket. I hadn't gotten far when a keypad on the front door beeped aggressively. The door flew open with a bang. Ava stormed in, her face a mask of cold fury. Trailing behind her, wearing a look of faux concern, was Julian. She saw the open suitcase on the bed and froze. Then a smirk of cold, condescending understanding spread across her face. Leaning against the doorframe with her arms crossed, she spoke, her voice dripping with acid. Well, if it isn't Bridgewater General's resident hero, Dr. Liam Miller. Weren't you so tough back in the OR? Weren't you quitting? What happened? Did you come crawling back already? Why haven't you left? Still squatting in my home? Got nowhere else to go. In her mind, my grand exit at the hospital was just a childish tantrum, a pathetic bid for her attention. She believed that I, an orphan with no connections, was nothing without her and the platform she provided. This act of packing was, to her, just a stage play. I was waiting for her to come home, so I could beg for forgiveness, just as I had after countless arguments before. The thought seemed to soothe her anger, replacing it with the smug satisfaction of someone who believes they hold all the cards. But she wasn't going to let me off that easily. Not after I'd publicly humiliated her and, more importantly, her precious Julian. She had to reestablish her dominance. Liam, don't think for a second that putting on this pathetic little show will make me forgive you, she sneered. You embarrassed me and Julian today. I won't forget it. You want my forgiveness? Fine. A cruel glint appeared in her eyes. First, get on your knees and apologize to Julian 3 times and make it sincere. Then, you're going to slap your own face until I tell you to stop. Maybe, if you're a good little dog, I'll consider letting you stay. Julian stepped forward, putting a placating hand on her arm. Ava, honey, take it easy. Dr. Miller didn't mean it. He was just overcome with jealousy. He turned to me, his voice oozing condescension. Liam, just apologize to Ava. It's not a big deal. You know what they say, never go to bed angry. And don't worry, even if you're not a surgeon anymore. Ava, and I will make sure you're taken care of. I'm sure there's an opening for an orderly in the hospital basement. Listening to this disgusting, humiliating performance made my stomach turn. I ignored them. I calmly folded my last old t-shirt, placed it in the suitcase, and zipped it shut. I stood up, ready to leave this toxic place for good. My silence, my complete lack of reaction, seemed to unnerve Ava. A flicker of irritation, of real anxiety, crossed her face. She raised her voice, her tone verging on hysterical. Liam, are you deaf? I'm talking to you. What is this attitude? I rolled my suitcase to where she stood, blocking the doorway. I looked directly into her beautiful, distorted face. Ava, I said, my voice steady and clear. I told you, we're done. I only came back for my things. From this moment on, we have nothing to do with each other. You go your way, and I'll go mine. It was only then, hearing the finality in my voice, that she finally understood. I wasn't playing a game. I wasn't throwing a fit. I was serious. A tidal wave of pure, visceral rage crashed over her. She couldn't believe it. This man, who had always been at her beck and call, who had worshipped the ground she walked on, was actually leaving her. Instinctively, she resorted to her ultimate weapon, the one that had never failed before. She pointed a trembling finger at the door. Fine. Liam Miller, you think you're so tough. You think you've grown a spine. Get out. Get the hell out of my house right now. She shrieked. And I swear to God, if you walk out that door today, you are never, ever coming back. You can come crawling back on your hands and knees, begging me, and I won't even spit in your direction. I will make you see that without me, you are nothing. In the past, this move, the threat of abandonment, had always been her checkmate. It always sent me scrambling back, swallowing my pride, desperate to appease her. This time will be no different, she thought. It was all a bluff, but she was wrong. I didn't even look at her. I rolled my suitcase past her, our shoulders brushing for a fraction of a second. Without a backward glance, I walked out the door toward a new world, a new life. My back was straight, my steps were firm. There was no hesitation, no regret. The heavy door clicked shut behind me. The sound echoed in the apartment like a gunshot, shattering Ava's pride, her confidence, her entire sense of control. She stared at the closed door, her face a canvas of disbelief and confusion. How could he just leave? How could he not want me anymore? An unfamiliar terror, a primal fear of being abandoned, seized her. She started shaking uncontrollably, and with a guttural scream, she began to destroy the living room. She smashed the vases I'd bought, tore the photos from the walls, shattering every object that held a shared memory. Julian rushed to her side, trying to comfort her. Ava, don't. He's not worth it. He's gone, and that's a good thing. I'm here now. I'll take care of you. She shoved him away with surprising force, her eyes wild and bloodshot. Get out. Both of you, just get out, she screamed, though I was already long gone. Julian, stunned by her ferocity, backed away and left. Ava collapsed onto the cold floor amidst the wreckage. There was no remorse in her heart, only a burning, bottomless hatred. She dug her nails into her palms until they bled. The physical pain, nothing compared to the wound in her ego. Liam Miller, you just wait, she whispered to the empty room, her voice a venomous rasp. You think you can survive without me? You think you're somebody? This is the biggest mistake of your life. I'll show you. Julian and I will take the department to heights you couldn't even dream of. And I will make you watch. I will make you regret this day for the rest of your miserable life. I'll make you come back and beg me like the dog you are. She had no way of knowing that my walking out that door was her last chance. A final, unspoken opportunity to stop, to think, to turn back. But she didn't see it. blinded by an arrogance as vast and empty as her ambition. She let it slip away, destroying it with her own two hands. Chapter 3 days later, in the state-of-the-art VIP operating room at Bridgewater General, the atmosphere was thick with tension. The grade A carotid aneurysm resection was in its final, critical stage. Using his flashy 3D endoscopic microdissection technique from Harvard, Julian Croft had managed to stumble his way through the removal of the main aneurysm. It took far longer than it should have, but he'd done it without any immediate catastrophe. In the observation gallery, the hospital board members, who had been nervous since my departure, finally relaxed. A ripple of applause and murmurs of admiration filled the room. Now that's a Harvard education on display. Incredible technique. Look at that. Minimally invasive, almost no bleeding. This is the future of surgery. DR should have made the right call. With Dr. Croft on board, our National Center of Excellence designation is a sure thing. Julian, hearing the praise, allowed himself a small, self-satisfied smile. What did that hack Miller ever accomplish? His methods were crude, something a backwoods country doctor would use. This is where real talent belongs. Ava watched Julian, her eyes shining with adoration. He was focused, masterful at God in scrubs. This was the man who would walk beside her to the pinnacle of the medical world. This was her destiny. As for Liam, he was just a relic, a stubborn fool left behind by progress. Kicking him out was the best decision she'd ever made. But then came the final step, the part no one had anticipated, the separation of the nerve bundles, that microscopic arachnoid web, more delicate than anything man-made. Suddenly, Julian's confident, theatrical movements became hesitant. A sheen of cold sweat beaded on his forehead. The scalpel in his hand, once an extension of his will, began to tremble. He stared in horror through the microscope. The fragility and complexity of the nerve cluster were beyond anything described in his textbooks. His vaunted Harvard technique was useless here. There was no angle of approach. One wrong move, a single micron of error, and he would sever the patient's connection to his own body, condemning him to a vegetative state or immediate death. This wasn't his moment of triumph. It was a minefield. How? How can this be? This isn't what the literature described. A cold dread washed over him. Miller's surgical plan. Surely he must have detailed the procedure for this part. He frantically racked his brain, tried to remember the extensive pre-op report Liam had submitted. But there was nothing, not a single word about how to handle this neurological nightmare. The bastard, that condescending, devious bastard had led him straight into a trap. "Julian, what is it?" Ava asked, sensing his hesitation. "Is there a problem?" "No, nothing. Just a minor complication. I've got it under control," he lied, his voice strained. He was in too deep. To admit defeat now would be professional suicide. The genius persona he had so carefully constructed would shatter. He gritted his teeth, deciding to push through on theory and instinct alone. He was a Harvard man, after all. He wouldn't be beaten by this. He took a deep breath, steadied his hand as best he could, and guided the tip of the blade toward the deadly, intricate tangle of nerves. "Don't shake. Don't shake." Beep, 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 beep. The heart monitor shrieked, a piercing, frantic alarm that cut through the silence. On the screen, the patient's vitals plummeted. The clean, rhythmic line of the EKG dissolved into a chaotic, failing scribble before flatlining. Massive hemorrhage. Intracranial pressure is spiking. The anesthesiologist yelled in panic. A torrent of dark red blood erupted from the surgical site, flooding the operating field and splashing across Julian's pristine white scrubs. It was a torrent unstoppable and absolute. He froze, his face as white as a sheet. He knew what he'd done. His last, desperate cut had missed the nerves entirely. Instead, he had sliced through the main feeder artery hidden beneath the aneurysm, a vessel as thin as a thread, but responsible for supplying blood to the core of the brain. The patient was dying. Death was in the room. "Give me suction. Push AP now. Call the blood bank. We need Oneg on standby." Ava screamed, her voice cracking with hysteria as she tried to direct the frantic rescue effort. But it was too late. The patient's life was draining away, second by second, with no way to stop it. On the monitor, After one final, feeble twitch, the line went perfectly, horribly flat. The surgery was a failure. The patient was dead. News of the patient's death on the operating table hit Bridgewater General like a thunderclap. In the observation gallery, the board members and experts who had been singing Julian's praises just moments before were now silent, their faces pale with shock and fury. They knew a storm was coming, a malpractice suit of epic proportions that would tarnish the hospital's name for decades. The patient's family, a wealthy and influential Chicago dynasty, descended upon the hospital in a wave of grief and rage. They had entrusted their patriarch to the city's best hospital and its most celebrated surgeons, only to have him returned as a corpse. They vowed to use every ounce of their power and influence to see Julian Croft and Ava Chin stripped of their licenses, dragged through the courts, and thrown in jail. Overnight, Bridgewater General Dr. Chun and the Harvard genius Dr. Croft became the subjects of a media firestorm. Accusations of incompetence, arrogance, and fatal negligence were plastered across every news channel and social media feed. And then, a second story broke. A story from across the ocean that was so staggering, so utterly unbelievable, that it eclipsed everything else. Mayo Clinic announces hiring of surgical prodigy Dr. Liam Miller in world-first procedure. Dr. Miller successfully performs impossible microscopic nerve regeneration surgery. The medical world was stunned. On television, on the internet, on the cover of every major medical journal, there was his face, calm, confident, and impossibly young. The reports detailed his miraculous surgery, a procedure considered decades away from reality, and hailed his proprietary neuroweave technique as a gift from God, a revolutionary breakthrough that would change the face of modern surgery forever. In one night, Liam Miller went from a disgraced local surgeon to a global icon. Back at Bridgewater General, the staff read the news with a sense of dawning, gut-wrenching horror. The quiet, unassuming surgeon they had mocked and dismissed, the man Ava Chun had thrown out like trash, was a titan, a genius of world historical importance, hidden in plain sight. Ava saw it all on a live feed in her office. She watched the man she had called a failure, a burden, standing on the world's most prestigious medical stage, being lauded by Nobel laureates. The laptop screen wavered before her eyes. The world tilted on its axis. She stared at the face of the man on the screen, so familiar, yet now so impossibly distant, and a feeling of regret so profound it felt like a physical blow knocked the air from her lungs. She finally understood what she had done. She had held a flawless, universe-altering diamond in her hand and, in her blind arrogance, had mistaken it for a common stone and thrown it into the mud. In its place, she had treasured a worthless, rotting piece of driftwood. "No, it's not possible. He can't be," she whispered, her voice trembling. She scrambled from her office, a wild, desperate plan forming in her mind. She had to find him. She had to apologize. She had to beg. But it wasn't Liam she found waiting for her. It was a process server, holding a thick legal summons in the cold, hate-filled eyes of the dead patient's son. The verdict was swift and merciless. Both she and Julian were found guilty of gross negligence. Their medical licenses were permanently revoked. The court ordered them to pay a settlement so massive it would bankrupt them 10 times over. Julian, unable to handle the fall from grace, suffered a complete psychotic break. He was institutionalized, a drooling, smiling shell of the man he once was. Ava lost everything. The court seized her house, her car, her savings. The brilliant, ambitious, envied Dr. Ava Chin was gone. In her place was a pariah, a failure, drowning in a debt she could never repay. Her life, her dream, everything she had ever worked for, was utterly and irrevocably destroyed. Epilogue months later, in a spacious, sunlit corner office at the Mayo Clinic, I was reviewing the complex case file of a Middle Eastern royal. My life had become a whirlwind of high-stakes surgeries, international conferences, and research that was pushing the boundaries of what was thought possible. The neuroweave technique was now the gold standard, and the world's wealthiest and most powerful people queued up, offering fortunes for a chance to be healed by my hands. A soft knock came at the door. Professor Campbell entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Liam, my boy," he said, a playful glint in his eye. "There's a woman at the main entrance asking for you. A MS Chun from Chicago. Says she's an old acquaintance." He paused, taking a sip of his coffee. "She says she used to be your wife." My hand, holding the patient file, stilled. I looked up, my expression unreadable. "Professor," I said, my voice calm and even. "I don't have a wife. Tell security to ask her to leave." "I won't see her." Campbell shrugged, a small smile playing on his lips. "Figured you'd say that. Still, the poor woman looks like she's been through a war. Been waiting out there for 3 days, barely eaten or slept." He looked at me over the rim of his cup. "Perhaps it's best to get it over with. For closure, as you Americans say." I was silent for a long moment, then gave a slight nod. He was right. Some ghosts had to be faced before they could truly disappear. Outside the magnificent glass and steel entrance of the clinic, I saw her. The transformation was horrific. The old Ava, vibrant, proud, immaculate, was gone. This woman was gaunt, her skin sallow, her eyes hollow and dead. She wore frayed, worn-out clothes. Her once lustrous hair was matted and dull. She was a flower that had been crushed, drained of all life and color. When she saw me get out of the sleek black car the clinic provided, a flicker of something desperate, agonizing hope ignited in her empty eyes. She stumbled forward, grabbing my arm with a grip like a drowning woman. Liam, I was wrong. I was so wrong. Please, can you forgive me? Can we start over?" She sobbed, her words choked and hysterical. "I have nothing left. Nothing. You're all I have. Please don't leave me. Don't throw me away." Her tears, her desperation. Once they would have shattered my heart. Now I felt nothing. A cold, quiet stillness. Gently, but with unflinching resolve, I pried her fingers from my arm, one by one. I looked at her, not with hatred, but with the dispassionate finality of a chapter that has long been closed. "Ava," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "It's too late. The man who loved you, the man who would have done anything for you, he died on the floor of that operating room. You and I have nothing to do with each other anymore. Everything that's happened to you, you chose it. This is the life you made for yourself. Goodbye." I turned and walked away, not looking back as her broken sobs echoed behind me. I walked through the automatic doors, back into the world of light, of healing, of the future. The sun shone brightly on the world outside, a world full of promise and new beginnings. But some people, I knew, had already extinguished their own light and were destined to remain in the dark forever. Ava Chun eventually suffered a complete mental breakdown and was committed to a long-term care facility. They say she spends her days in a tattered white coat, clutching a pillow to her chest, whispering my name. Sometimes she laughs, sometimes she cries. As for me, I continued my work, my life's path taking me ever higher. Our worlds no longer intersected. We were, finally, inhabitants of 2 completely different universes. Except this time, she was the one looking up from the bottom, unable to even glimpse the heights where I now stood.